And also, if someone's like this, can somebody do this? Pop, can you do this?
Like you used to do when you first came here.
Okay. So now this is very common with the chair so far away. So if they have that, I will say, can you bend your knee? Let's. It kind of depends. If they look kind of unstable, I'll pull the chair. Let's pull the chair. And now hump up. Yeah. So then here, what he's doing. Sometimes people are just bring your shoulders up around your ears without humping. So if they're just like that, this one is easy. It's this. And I don't think, I mean, I guess every once in a while I've had somebody who resists and forces them up more, but mostly it's just that little action. It's kind of like that happens. Now go hump and do that. So the elbow goes here, the forearm, not the corner of your elbow. And then same thing. You see what I did?
Yes.
I pushed down and pulled back. Does that make sense? Yeah? Do it again, round up. So you can practice this on your partner. This forearm just tells his thoracic spine to go down. The hands pull back. Light. Yeah? Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So that's one that I think I would feel very comfortable with you doing. Again, if it's your very first class assisting, do very little. Mostly watch, mostly do feet, mostly be a prop getter, because your energy is high in that moment, and it's not, it would be easy to kind of overdo. So my request would be get a little more comfortable and then add things in a little bit at a time.
Especially building trust. with
Right,
everybody, too,
right.
Which is a big part of it.
Right, but and the thing is, of course, you are going to be in different classes. People may not have seen you before, but they're all getting used to it. Over time now, in the next few months, it will be normal to have an assistant in class, so that will make life easier. Barry found that when he was trying to help the fellow who practiced that night doing this, there was nothing going on, right? That was it. So I would be very sensitive, as long as they're not doing this. I wouldn't try to get them to go more if you know it's their first class. As long as they're in the right shape, they're okay. If it's a Yoga 2 class and someone is kind of, and you know, again, you don't know necessarily, because I don't have the time to tell you everybody's injury, and maybe I don't know, but they don't have a shoulder injury. So you don't want to lift their arm up. But maybe in a Yoga 2, I don't know. I don't know how good it is to go up and say to, lift them up. Might work. And, usually it's that they're doing this. Like this is a correctable offense, This is not useful, it's not doing much. So you might say, lift up toward the top corner of the room so you get a little more stretch in your side waist. Something like that. If somebody is standing like this, they take their arms up and they don't have their hands facing around, you might give them one of these gently, right? And you say, is it okay if I touch your shoulders? This one is important because if a person has a shoulder injury and this is all they can lift their arms, then you don't want to be moving their arms into a place where they can't be. So always good on that, because almost everybody, I think, don't you think, Christy, will say, I have a shoulder issue. Because people are pretty okay about talking about that, I think. Yeah. And you could even do that without touching, right? The person's like this, right? Or they're doing this. You go over and you stand near them and you say, can you turn your palms toward one another? And it might just be you smiling and doing this. They don't even have to say the whole thing too much. Let's see. Torso position. So I'm kind of, we're doing a lot of 13 inches, the thigh bones back. I don't think, again, once you've been there once or twice, and people know you. Karen, can you do? If Karen is standing and doing, let me face that way. if she's standing and doing this, and she has her hips coming forward like that. Yeah, this is no exaggeration, right? One hand on the shoulder, one finger at the hip, right? Just like that. You know, thank you. I think that's a really good one, and I don't think it's too much. I don't think it's invasive. Again, you can say, let me help you bring your thighs back. Or you can just say, hey, bring your thighs back. That's another one, yeah. But, again, it goes to that thing of asking. It's hard to ask for little things like that, and I have been making the announcement in all of the classes. We have an assistant in the room. They might make a small adjustment with your body. They're not going to push or force you. If you don't want to be touched, just let us know when we come to you. So in a way, that's kind of a blanket disclaimer. So that if you go up and you do something like that, you may not even have to say, is it okay if I put my hand on your blah blah? I mean, it's blah blah.
I'll make a blanket announcement sometimes too.
Right, right.
If you're uncomfortable, just flag me away.
Just go, I just say just go like this.
Won't take any offense.
Right, nobody will mind, yeah, absolutely. And we do have to be careful with that, because that is a real thing.
Yes.
So, and I think everybody is more respectful because of it, and that's good.
But then when you do follow up with, can I adjust your hip?
Yeah, yeah.
It makes more sense why you said that in the first place.
Right, absolutely. So we said we could point. So
A little bit.
you can do this yourself, you can do this yourself, and that's kind of good. And once they do it, this is a good point, I think. Say somebody's been standing like this, and you go over and you go like this, and they do that, then you go.
Yeah.
You know, so they really, it's not just like you go, okay, there, and you go over, right? You really have to say, like, give them encouragement that, we're all in this together, we all do this, And if there's somebody that you were working with quite a lot that day, I think it's really nice to go up to them afterwards and say, it was really great to be able to work with you. How are you feeling? And so it kind of evens out the experience. And it's always great. I've heard all of you say, when I first started, da 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 da. And I think it makes them feel great. I really do. So in the revolved poses, this is kind of a good one to look for, right? Because often, whether it's on the chair or on the block, they'll look like they're like this. What's the problem with this? What needs to change?
Left hand needs to go.
Mine. Yeah. So my hand is too much into the middle lane, right? So what's that doing? It's crossing my torso into the outside lane, across the road, right? So if you see somebody doing this, don't try to get their shoulders back over there, because their base is in the wrong place, right? So then you can just say, move their head over here. Now, especially if they're on the chair and they're the fella Tim, right? Super tall guy, but he now puts those chairs on his blocks on his chair. But if they're like this, and you can see that they're doing this, there's no way, it's just their structure. Then sometimes, if you don't have a whole lot of time, I'll just have them come up on their fingertips, or sometimes I'll say if you're going to put a prop under their hand and they're like this, don't just say lift up, right? Let them bend their knee to create more stability, then place that prop. And then I would say, does that feel better, right? Or how does that feel? So that they can, say, oh yeah. And we talked about this last week, for those of you who weren't here. If the person wants to go into a long discussion, which can happen, well, I have this hip thing, it's going to be a little awkward for the person teaching the class, right? So that's where you can kind of do this, like, out of my pay grade thing. and you can say, well, maybe you should talk with the teacher about that, or something like that, so that you don't get into a long conversation that's distracting. Very common, same thing in revolved triangle. People have their feet too much in the middle lane. They have their block too much in the middle lane, and that's why they're crossing. So if all of that is done, but they're still like this, oh, they're like this, right? What's the first thing you have to tell them to do?
Take the arm.
Take the arm out, yeah, because you can't have them move anything with his arm dangling in midair. So put your hand beside your hip, bend your knee, and then you already have the block in your hand. You give them the second block. And you can say something like, see, this lifts you up to give you the room to stretch your hip, yeah? And then that way they feel like you're giving them a bonus. You're not telling them they're doing it wrong. Let's see. If I miss anything, folks, tell me. Okay, crescent pose. So this would be more in, well, it actually, oh, let me just say one thing. What you will notice, it's really good to walk around in Parshvottanasana, is that people think, when they're learning, that they're supposed to bend the knee like this. Even if I say just bend it a little bit, they do the big like, So then you can just say, just bend your knee a little bit so your knee doesn't pass your ankle. Or they're here, and I'm saying, leg is straight, you're feeling the back of your leg stretching, hamstring is stretching, you've got your toes pulled back, and they're just here. So, like in that circumstance, I wouldn't say, oh, well, they're brand new, so I'm not going to say anything. Then I would ask them to, oh, don't forget, we're pulling the sit bone back. Can this leg come a little straighter? Ah, now you felt in the back of the leg, yeah. Because it's interesting, that just happens a lot, and I just think they zone out with it sometimes. Crescent pose in Yoga 1, we do crescent pose a lot at the chair. So I'll have them step forward with the chair very close, because if the chair is too far, then they're like this, right? So I have the chair very close, and often they will put the foot back here and the knee will come too far forward. So look and see that the foot is over the knee, and then look and see that the foot is wide, because this is very common, right? Also look to see that this knee isn't buckling in. That's an easy fix, like in a Yoga 2 class. If you see that the person is standing with this knee like this, you can just come and be careful, because now they're tenuous and they're balanced. You can just say, can this knee see? You can just point with your hand, and this knee come over. Yeah. If they're doing this, right? So then you go beside them, and you say, can you pull your rib drawer in? Right? You're just showing it, right? Oftentimes when they come up in crescent pose, this would be such a help to me. When we're learning crescent pose from the floor, and I like Yoga 2. Yoga 1, you learn it on the chair. Yoga 2, you learn it from the blocks, right? Put your hand on your hip. You got this. Put your fingertips on the block. Feel your legs. Take your weight. Often they come up, and I can't get to everybody, and they're too split, and they're kind of like this, right? So what's the first thing you have to tell them to do?
Arms down.
Put your hands back on your blocks. Step your back foot forward. This will feel a little more stable. Because you can't adjust somebody when they're dangling in midair. Yeah, great. All right. Okay. So any other standing poses that I may have missed that you have questions about, or that, okay. So now, as we get into now we've started to move a little bit. It's interesting how January progresses into February. But what we're teaching is changing a little bit. So like in Yoga 2, I was teaching revolved high lunge a little bit. I was teaching crescent pose coming up. So now we're going to start working into Warrior 3 preparation. So a great one for that is to look at where their block is. because this is where you could be very helpful if you're in a Yoga 2 class. So normally, I will teach them, the first thing they'll learn is to just walk the blocks forward and take this leg up. And inevitably, they're kind of like this, or they're like this, and they don't know why this feels so weird. And so get the blocks a torso distance away, and then notice where their shoulders are, right? So if their shoulders are down here, and their arms are straight, you have a possibility of fists. Because fists can sometimes solve the problem, because then if you have to double the block, it gets harder. Not that we can't, or we couldn't use cylinders, but if fists will solve the problem, then go there. Then weight to the heel, because we'd rather see the weight in the heel and the bottom leg bent and the back leg up than the leg straight and the leg draping, right? You can also look if they're doing the fire hydrant watering gently, boom, like that. You can put your hand at the back of their heel and say, push into my hand. Yeah. Shoulders back and down will usually come from arm placement in this one, right? And if they have this hand forward and they're doing, right, you can put your hand on your hip and still be getting a lot of good work. So that's another possibility, right? That would be coming up pretty soon. So all of that block placement. Pigeon. We'll be teaching pigeon a little bit, right? So pigeon in Yoga 1, generally I have people sit on the chair, at the edge of the chair, on blocks, almost all of them on blocks. Because even if you're not that tall, I usually say, unless your feet dangle, if they're sitting on blocks and their feet are dangling, it isn't good. But it gives them a little more space to hinge. So you can walk around or you don't have to walk around and look, you can look with your eyes. We'll just see, because the common errors are to have the foot kind of like this, or to put it up like this, or to just have the foot limp, or to be crossed over too much. So you can look to see that the foot is placed well. For some people, Christy, do you still do the double block in Ultra Gentle?
Yes, or
Yeah.
triple.
Or triple. And they're sitting up a little higher if they can, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So say you have people sitting up, some of those people are very short, so maybe they're not sitting up, but even if they are, and they can't get their leg up to here, that's not going to happen. So aren't you glad that would ever be me? You do like that?
No, I'll stack them
Stack them.
flat.
Stack
Yeah.
'em flat, okay.
People post hip surgery too, or knee surgery. I usually do that because it's a pretty long time before they can make the number 4.
Or the number 4. I never thought of it as the number 4. Alice, toss me that block, will you? Thanks. Can you get it to me?
No.
Oh, look at that. Oh, there you go. Speak here. So, right? Then you can get there. But you have to watch that they have their foot sort of on the edge, because you don't want them to have their foot like that. Yeah. And the thing is, you don't want it over here. This isn't the same pose. It's a very different effect. And so even if they tuck this foot a little bit, this has to be sort of over here.
When you say over here, is
More in line with this
more
foot
in line with that foot, that's
than
what-
way over
yeah,
there.
okay, just wanna make sure.
Yeah.
A challenging thing about sitting on blocks is people will sit way back. I
Right.
think they'd feel a little less stable
Uh-huh.
moving to the edge of blocks. So I just keep trying to say, can you move forward a little more?
Slide forward,
But,
yeah. And you make sure their chair is on the mat, so
Mhm.
they don't feel like they're gonna slip off,
Yeah.
right?
It's just,
That's one of the big
it's just
nice
different.
things to assist with, too.
Chairs on the mat.
Chairs.
Where the chairs need to be. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So then, if someone is doing like all these foot circle things and they've got their knee bent the whole time, you could help them to keep the leg straight. Say, can you move from the whole leg? Maybe. What else in ultra gentle that you might do on the chair, you might do? Anything else you can think of standing wise before I get to stuff on the floor and stuff? I'm gonna do more pigeon in a minute.
No seated child's pose.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one, yeah. Do you do with blocks, yeah?
Yeah.
So not on blocks on the chair, but feet wide. The common error is to not take the feet wide enough and to be trying to do this, but to take the feet wider. Now you're not on the edge, so you sit back so you're not gonna fall off. And then sometimes the knees are in, so knees open. And then they take the blocks and they walk them forward. So this is seated child's pose, right? And then breathing the ribs wide, lifting the ribs, being here. If somebody is challenged in putting their head too low like this, it makes them dizzy, they get migraines, they have their life story is such that they can't put their head down. Putting their hands on a seat of a chair is also good. You know, it actually feels really good, yeah.
Back to pigeon,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at people's backs, if they're hunching down
Right.
to get to their legs, what do you do there?
Right, good, okay. Paco, can you do it?
Audrey, what is the difference in
Oh, I'm sorry,
Place in
let's
the
turn this side,
blocks,
I apologize.
in the direction that the blocks are? Is there a difference?
The reason I like them like this is that often after seated pigeon, I have people hold the edge of the blocks here and roll their shoulders back, and I say, hold on, like this, and then we do the foot circles, because in the foot circles, they tend to do this to look at their foot. So if they hold these, and I can help them lift up like this, then it kind of reminds them. You know, it's not the only way to do it. Can you cross your leg and do a humpy pigeon? Right. Okay. So somebody's like this. You could, especially in the beginning, come and say, "Can you want to get?" Can you lift your chest up? And that's it. You can put your hands. That's it. That's one. Yeah, for sure. As they step. You just put, yeah, I just put the hands there on the knees lightly, yeah. Usually what I have them do is when we're sitting, I'll say, put your hands on your hip creases, lift up through the spine, and from the hinge of the hips, lay your spine forward like a board. You know, you and I know that a straight spine isn't real, but straight spine seems to work in terms of people understanding. If I say long spine, they don't always know what that means. But there's another adjustment. So if you don't mind, hump your back. So then it's like this. Shoulders up, spine long. Oh, you can't see that, can you? But you saw it on the video, right? Can you turn sideways so they can see it? So hump. So you don't want to just go, you don't want to go to the place that's the problem. You want to create space on the ends for the space that's the problem to move. Does that make sense? So I'm pulling, I've got my hand here ready, I'm pulling his shoulders forward as I'm encouraging this to lift, right? Does that make sense? Did you do that one? Yeah. All right, good. Thank you so much. Okay, pigeon on the chair, that's that. Pigeon on the floor, if they do thread the needle, because we'll often offer all three possibilities, especially in yoga too, where we start teaching pigeon belly down, and people can't do that because of a knee issue. And I'll say, if you have a knee issue and bearing weight on your knee like this is not good, you can do backline pigeon or stool pigeon. All are good. And so the common error in thread the needle is to be like this, right? So it's just, instead of saying, put your shoulders down, let your back relax, just take the blanket and say, let me slide this under your head. Don't say, can I put a blanket underneath your head? Say, let me give you this, like you're giving them a great gift. Because I think when Barry asked the lady if she would like a blanket, it's very common too, with women in particular, they'll say, oh, no, I'm okay. And so sometimes it's nice if you can just you're not saying, but I insist. You're just saying, here it is, you know? And then usually, they'll go, oh, thank you, you know, you're just giving them a little gift, right? So another strange thing that's very common in thread the needle is for the person to hold this leg and pull it in, right? They don't get that you put your hand through. And so then you're just looking that this foot isn't rigid, you can help them relax this foot, that this leg is crossed, wherever it can cross, and that the shoulders are coming back and down. Now, one thing you can do, because sometimes, they're pulling in, but this leg isn't doing anything. It's just coming in like this, so now we're kind of missing the point. We might as well just be doing this, right? You can put your hand on the outside of their crossed knee here and say, push your leg into my hand. I like that a lot, because you're not pushing their limb, you're just telling them to apply pressure to where they feel the touch, right? Same thing as something like this, if they're sinking, and you say, you just put your hand on the thigh lightly, press your thigh up into my hand, you know, that's another, or if they're like this, you can put your hand on their heel and say, press your heel into my hand, you know. Because interesting enough, you say press your heel back, sometimes they don't know what that means. That's interesting. Pigeon on the floor, usually we'll teach it from all fours, and when we do that, I'll usually go bring your right knee to your right wrist, bring your shin in front of your left thigh with your foot slightly flexed, then slide your leg back. Inevitably, many people will be like this. So the rule of thumb is if they're like this, right, is to say, can you lift your chest? Will your knee go safely over here and just tap, just outside your ribs, yeah? And then when you're teaching it, you're always telling them not to come forward into the knee, but to be sliding back, and sometimes you'll see them like this. So helping them get their elbows a little wider, and if they're sitting on the thigh like this, right? So then you say, how does your knee feel? That's the number one thing, because maybe they're trying to avoid their knee. Oh, my knee feels fine. Oh, okay. So how would it be to lift this thigh off the floor and be here? Oh, that's really stretchy. Then you might offer the block. How would it feel if we put a blanket or a block underneath here? Yeah? And so, like say somebody says, you know, my knees are tight. And this is just a teaching point. If their knees are tight, that's okay. Then you say, how does your knee feel? Does your knee feel a little bit more supported if we put this under here? Then they might have to be like this, in which case, you might have to toss them. Nobody wants to touch that block.
Oh, I thought.
Oh,
We only did a
one
paper
more.
bar on there.
Uno mas.
It's not knocking out the other picture that's lost.
So like something like this is nice, you know, because if they're up that high, then like this feels so descended and it puts pressure on the knee. So if you're up that high, coming up a little bit is kind of good, yeah?
It's virtually the same stretch. I mean, you can stay up pretty high and still get a lot of stretch on it.
Yeah, but you don't want to be laying on the floor on that IT day.
Right.
Right, because you're not going to stretch something that you're laying on necessarily like that.
Yeah, but,
Sorry?
you know, just having the chest up there is.
Yeah.
If the rest is fine, everything else being equal, it's coming.
Right, and if you come to a Yoga One class, because now we're kind of in a circumstance where it used to be kind of more homogenous. In the daytime classes, we just don't do pigeon on the floor, we don't do downward facing dog on the floor, we don't do a lot of stuff. But now we have people who come to Yoga One who are used to using blocks, and then some people need to use chairs. So my standard chat is, if you're brand new, I'd like you to use a chair so you have stability and so that you can learn the form of the pose. If this is in Yoga One, if you're choosing to, if you've been practicing and you have a block height you like, you can use that, but you should know what you're doing. You should know how to, I'm assuming you know how to use the blocks, right? Because it's not your job in Yoga One, especially as a teacher with 25 people, to teach people how to use blocks. for the poses. That's a Yoga 2 class, right? So you don't want to be ignoring somebody who's on the chair here for the first time to teach somebody who wants to move on to blocks, which doesn't mean you can't do that, but that's not your number one priority. So the general rule of thumb is if you are coming to a simple stretch from standing, and you say, if you're using a chair, stand very close to the chair. Hinge at the hips, place your hands down on the chair. If you're and then I'll just say, and I'll be at the chair. I'm in Yoga 1, I'm teaching on a chair. And then, again, dependent, you know. Then I'll say, if you have blocks, you're standing right between them, so that you can hinge at the hips, put the hands down, and you're there. The blocks are in the right place. Yeah? And so walking around, obviously, and helping with that is good. And even young people, you know, especially in the evening, we get a lot of 20-something girls. And those girls, most of them are not very flexible, and a lot of them have really awful posture. They're rounded like this. So having them up on a chair is good because it gives them the chance to open their chest and to get the shoulders back and down. Yeah? And if you see somebody that's on a chair that is sinking because they're way too flexible for the chair, but they've been nice, it's their first class, they're using the chair, and you know that they could be on blocks, then you could give them blocks. That would be fine. Yeah. And with the big, tall guys who come in, you know, it's really okay to say, hey, these cylinders just work so much better, especially if you're a guy. You know, say, I use these in my practice. This works really great because they all don't want to look like they're using something that nobody else is. Okay, on the floor. So look for people who need a blanket over their head, put their wide feet in windshield wiper. So we said this the other day. You don't want to go and take somebody's like this and take their knees and spread them. Never good. Just tap, say, and oftentimes they'll have their feet too much out here like this. So then you just say, you know, you can tap their feet and say, can you move your feet back to the edge of the mat? Because if they're like this, they're not gonna. It's just gonna have less effect. It has more stress on the knee too. Mountain pose and rolling bridge, knees parallel, looking at those feet there. Often in rolling bridge, you'll see that people either have their feet too far out or they have them too far in, and that kind of restricts. So looking for something that looks, it doesn't have to be right underneath the knees, something that looks like they can get as much lift as they can is helpful. And often when people are brand new learning rolling bridge in Yoga 1, I teach rolling bridge in Yoga 1, but not right off the bat. That's not the first skill we learn. I usually teach it in combination with learning about pelvic tilt and all of that, yeah? And I'll make sure the front body is stretched out, and I'll make sure before I teach rolling bridge that the hamstrings are stretched out, because you put a bunch of beginners doing rolling bridge with tight hamstrings, they haven't stretched them, hamstrings cramp up, right? So you can just kind of, often they'll forget to bring their arms up, right? So you can stand right beside them and kind of mimic the position. And then sometimes they'll put the butt down without bringing the arm and then mimic the position all the way down. You don't even have to touch that one. I hardly ever touch that one. Block set up for angel in the snow. That's a very helpful one. And not all teachers get it right. I've seen teachers put blocks under people in a way that I didn't think was so useful, right? So, Brian, will you come and sit? So if someone's sitting, you've got them sitting and they're facing that way. As you're getting the block set up, number one thing is watch. Because I swear, 50% of people start rolling down before you're ready. You're just getting the blocks and they're already going down. So keep your eye on them. So I'll say, I'll go like this. I'm going to put the blocks under your knee, your shoulders, just leave it for a sec. So I'm kind of approximating. I have him here. Then as he comes down, I have my hand here on the back of his neck. So I'm supporting his neck. Now he's rolling down, and I'm estimating as he goes. Whoops. See, sometimes I'll just say, just hang on, wait. Okay. And then I'll get it there. And then I hold their head as they come down. Because sometimes you can start to see right then and there, and then I kind of wiggle it. that feels pretty good, yeah? Does that feel all right? And then the legs come straight. But sometimes you can see as their head is coming down that they're gonna need a blanket. So if you think that's possible at all, you have this available, and then as they're coming down, you put that underneath. And what determines that? He has to be able to have his chin down. If he's laying there and his head is back like this is not gonna work well, right? So can you just put your arms up so you can see like this? So you see where this is? It's at the base of the shoulder blades. Can you lift up? I want to show what it looks like when it's too low. Don't hurt yourself. See how that's too, and now put your arms down. See how that's too low? Doesn't it feel too low? Right? And then the other common areas, people have it up here. That's too high. Too high up towards the neck, right? So lift up and then, yeah, just like
So you're saying underneath the scapula?
that. At the base of the scapula, right? Does that make sense? So maybe what we'll do is, right now, can everybody place blocks for somebody? Let's do, this is one that I like to do. Yeah. Thanks. So,
Sometimes
yes.
I'll take a walk
Uh-huh.
before they lay down.
Okay, okay, all right. Let's see what Mike.
The other thing about coming down on the block for Angel in the Snow is how to get off.
Oh, absolutely great, yes.
I've seen some horrible things going on, people
Yeah.
twerking over doing stuff.
Okay, so the good point. So in general, what I try to say is bend your knees, bring your left arm across your body, and take your whole body as one unit to the right to roll off the blocks. Then use your hand to push the floor away, move the blocks, and then you can lay on your back, or sometimes we come to all fours, yeah. And so that we will for sure go over. Let me now, I know it's starting to get late, and I know you guys want to get going. Let me just go over any more things on the floor. Quad stretch, and we've all gone over quad stretch, right? So catch and match. So if people are laying on their side, let's just go over this again, because especially in Yoga 1, I'm going to be doing a lot of, bye Christy, thank you. I'm going to be doing a lot of that. And because it's amazing how restrictive this is. And I remember from George how important it was to his walking to stretch his quads. Because he would sit in his big blue armchair so much that his hips were just kind of permanently in this position. So it's not really so much of the quad here, it's the rectus femoris as it connects into the pelvis, and the iliacus, the hip flexor. Even more important than all this, although this is good too. Rob, would you be kind enough to grab me a strap, please? So you'll see, you've asked them to lay on their side, and you say, you'll hear, I'll say these things, but people don't do it, and they're kind of like this, right? So thank you so much. So you offer the blanket, right? Actually, I'm actually now starting to offer the block, because it's a better height, and it takes the weight out of your shoulders, and it's more solid. And you see that the shoulder is out of the way here. Then you help them, say they can't catch the foot here and do this easily. So if you're offering a strap, which is what a good assist would be, you're trying to help them get the strap, because they try to put this like a rodeo, you put a lasso. So you put the strap on in front, hold it, and then pull back. And a lot of them will stop about here, right? And they'll be pulling their foot in. So now we're not getting this. So I'll say, don't worry about the heel coming to your butt. Put the leg back, right? And then they'll be like this, right? So then you hold the strap and you say, slide your hand down as close to your heel as you can. And then as soon as they get there, they start doing this and the leg starts coming back. So you're trying to get the idea that the thigh is going to be continuous. They're going to have the shoulder back wherever it can be. You're going to look and see if it's like this. You're going to ask them to lift it up. If it's like this, you're going to ask them to bring it down so that the thigh is one continuous line with the torso. Right? And that is a huge, huge help for people because it's awkward to get into and there's not that much time. So by the time they get into it, we're already moving on to the other side. The trick is for people, again, we go to ego, right? They really should be on their side. And they're kind of like this, right? So I probably, because they can get there, I probably wouldn't tell them to lie on their side because they're obviously doing this for a reason. I'd probably just give them a strap. So now I would give them that strap, and then I would say, let the foot come away, and then they can be here. Because a lot of people can't even get here. This is outside their realm. Or they have a back issue where too much compression on the back wouldn't feel good, so laying on their side is going to be better. Right? But, looking to see that they're not switching their back on their belly is a good one. Sorry. Looking and seeing when we do hip flexor stretch on the block, often people have the wrong arm up. They've got their left leg extended, but their right arm up, so making sure they have the right arm. Looking to see that the block is at the sacrum here. Sometimes you see people have the block like at their waist and their butt is starting to hang off. That's a clue. You'll see that legs turn out, so asking them to turn their toes up is good. You'll see that they're doing this, right? Instead of this, you can say, just let the knee come away and then press with your heel. This is a good one to put your hand there and say press with your heel. You'll see them laying like this. So you can gently, first you say, is it okay if I touch your shoulder? You take the arm and you lift it up to reach it back. Because even if they have a shoulder issue, this is probably awful, and lifting it up to take it back could be good. But again, I would hold off on the shoulder adjustments like that till you kind of have a feel for the person. Because like, what's his name? Bob, the police guy? He's got, the shoulder issues that he knows how he can move his arms and how he can't. And so touching him, really not good. Sometimes if he's really like this, I'll say, how would it, I'll just go, I won't touch, I'll just say, how would it feel to move more like that? If he'll try it or not. But I have learned that police tend to be really rule followers. And if they think you want them to do it that way, they will try it even if it hurts. So, you kind of want to be careful that way. Help with straps. If we use straps on the feet, we're going to get to using straps and stretching at some point. Just help people do them according. See, that was what we said last week too. Is that so much of your choice in helping can come from listening to what I'm saying. If people aren't doing what I'm saying, then you can encourage them to get on the ball a little bit. Hand, feet, torso placement for plank. A lot of times people don't, if they're in yoga too, their feet are too close to their hands. We're going to work on part of our shoulder. I hope we'll get to it next week. Part of our shoulder practice next week will be to get to downward facing dog. And then helping people in downward facing dog will be huge in yoga too, because that's where we start to teach the action of the shoulders in downward facing dog bearing weight. Hopefully they've learned it in Yoga 1 on the chair. We spend time learning how to wrap the shoulders in Yoga 1 on the chair. But not everybody goes to Yoga 1 on the chair, so they don't always learn it. So that will be for sure this coming week. And we'll also, maybe we'll do Ardha Shalabhasana then, how to, well, let me just show you how to guide somebody through Ardha Shalabhasana. Did we do that last week? We did? Oh, yeah, because in yoga too, it's really helpful to have somebody help you, So, Kim, can you come and do All right, yoga two, lay on your belly. Yeah. So here's somebody who has no injuries. They just don't know how to do this. And maybe it's a day where sometimes in yoga too, if there's only one person, say I've gone over this, there's only one person, especially like Saturday morning, where we tend to get people who are a little bit more advanced. I just say, well, this one's kind of like patting your stomach and rubbing your head, and I'll just call it out as I go. Sweep the right arm forward, lengthen and lift the left leg, so it's opposite arm and leg, and they're kind of looking and struggling to figure it out. So what I'll usually say is, so the first action of this pose goes like this, and forehead to the floor. It just does this, just like that, and then head off the floor. That's the number one thing. Okay, let's start again. Okay, forehead to the floor. Then as you do that, you're gonna take this leg and back and push it into my hand and reach back. So that's what this is gonna do. Now let's do the arm. See, I think I'm talking pretty quietly. Yes, we're going down. So let's go. We're gonna inhale, squeeze, take your leg up, and then I do this. Is that the right arm? Right. Oh, sorry, I didn't even look at her like, no, no. Yeah. Now then I'll say, look over here. And then, see how she turned her head? It's amazing how they always turn their head to this one, because you have that hand. And then I'll go here. Say, okay, good, same thing. So thumb up, arm sweeps forward. Now look over here. That's nice, good. And then I'll just say, okay, go ahead. Push. Because inevitably the leg's a little light or something, or the leg is turned. You have to watch that people are doing this. Can you turn one of your legs out when you do it? So they're doing this, right? It's out here. So then I just take the thigh and I turn it, right? Not that, but internal rotation. Yeah. Kind of, yeah, pretty easy. Because honest to God, I mean, I've tried really hard to find other ways to help people find the arm, and I've just resorted to just drawing a circle with their arms. You try to show them, they're laying on their belly. And often, you know, if we're really teaching this skill, we will for sure practice it sitting on a block. You know, we'll have the knuckles forward, we'll squeeze between the shoulder blades, we'll take the arm up, then we'll take it, and we'll turn the head. Right? Now head comes forward, turn the arm. You know, we'll do all that as a rehearsal if we're really teaching. But a lot of the times we're not teaching. So if you can just help them. But the big thing is, don't lift their arm up high, right? So you definitely don't want them doing this. What do? Right, like that. So you're just helping them graze their baby finger on the floor. You're not taking that arm up like that, right? So squeeze baby finger on the floor. So that will be helpful. And then I think, you know, at the end, it's just helping them get their blocks. A lot of them will put their blocks under their ankles instead of underneath their thighs. If you can grab a blanket and put the blanket over the blocks, it feels so much better. If I'm standing right there and the person doesn't know what they want and we're not using chairs, I'll just slip a bolster underneath their legs and see how this is like the yogi easy chair. And, you know, just to get this. And then if they're, again, blanket underneath the head, and what else? Oh, this, right? So even if they don't need a blanket, sometimes they just need the chin down, and then this, right, comes to the side.
You've also talked about covering up if people get sometimes it's cold.
Right, yes, you could offer a blanket, you know, if it's cold, you could say, would you like a blanket? And then talking to them at the end and being available and being encouraging and inclusive and all of that kind of stuff, really good. I mean, you read the whole pain thing and all that stuff. I don't, when they first walk in, I don't give them a long liturgy of how to pay. Because it just feels like a gym to me, where they want to just get you to pay, right? You're here, oh, you live in Ventura County, oh, it's your first class fare. Well, the first class is free, but we do need you to fill out this waiver, just put it in the box when you're done. And then if they ask you about the paying, then you can say, well, after this, there are paying options, and we'll talk to you about that at the end of the class. Because by then, they're already buying in now, hopefully, to kind of get experience. And it's not like because they're just so, you know, kind of tentative when they walk in that too much paying information is too much information. Does that make sense? Yeah, and then watching them to, if they don't, they start, a lot of new people and old people will put their shoes on there. So my standard line is, would you carry your shoes out? Not take your shoes off, would you carry your shoes out? What else? Oh, if you come and you're standing outside for a class and you know people are being loud, sitting on the bench, please go up to them and say, no, my nose are really, so you have to be kind of quiet, because they can hear everything you're saying. Then that way we're not saying it. I thought about putting a sign on the bench that said, if a class is in session, please, be quiet. I feel like it's like sign, everywhere a sign. Don't come in, be quiet. I don't know. I don't think even with your really great sign on the door, I mean, at least once a day somebody opens the door with a sign on there. So I'm not sure more signs are going to be better. And then I'd like to just show you the heat, because we got a new thermometer. And the very coolest thing was Barry taught me how to use this thing. Thank you. Because I was really in the dark about this thing. That the guy from the heater company said, you do it like this. You go, blah, blah, blah. And he just didn't make it simple. So it's very simple. And the main thing is that you don't open the door, right? So if you open the door and you just start pushing buttons, the thing is programmed, it's supposed to come on 45 minutes before the class starts in the morning. It's supposed to go off at night and then restart in the morning. Each class has been programmed, if it's an 8 o'clock class, it'll start at 7:15. If it's a 9 o'clock class, it'll start at a different time. Isn't that cool?
So doors are kept closed during class?
Well, the door should be kept closed unless it's boiling hot. I mean, because that's a big question, and you have to be a little bit careful, but I get really particular about this. Oh, there's no air in here. There's plenty of air, right? It's just that we're not used to any kind of discomfort. So that discussion about when we practice yoga, we will feel uncomfortable with it, and becoming aware of the discomfort without adding the commentary is part of the mindfulness practice, right? It's like I was just visiting one of our students who had a hip replacement today, and she said, oh my gosh, she said, the mindfulness has been so helpful to me because, I recognize that I have pain, but that's normal. And so I notice when I start getting worried or fearful, and then I just breathe. And it's amazing how the pain doesn't feel as much when I do that. And so that really is part of it. Now, we don't want to on purpose make people horribly uncomfortable, and we don't want to mock them because they feel like they feel, because they have no idea what it's like to deal with discomfort, so it takes some learning. But your students can run you if you're not careful, right? Oh, you had the door open yesterday, and then it becomes like a discussion. This is this is your class, my class. It's not a group effort to decide whether the door will be open or not, right? And so, especially, in the 10 o'clock class and stuff, they really want that door open all the time. And now the weather is not door open weather, right? And so, I use the safety card. It's really not safe to stretch your muscles when they're cold. So we can't really have a cold draft blowing in. But, we do have the door open back here. If you feel like you need some air, you can walk back there and open the blinds. The heat isn't on, by the way, Alice, during the day. It's not like it's on for the whole class and we're heating the class. It just it brings the room temperature to 69 before the class begins, which is not super warm. And then, you see those arrows you can see that right next to the little readout, there are arrows. If it's not warm enough, you push the arrow up. And then don't go, oh, it didn't start heating up right away, and push more. Wait, because it has to sense what you want. It'll say on there heat 72 or whatever, so push it to 74, like up 2 notches. And then, if it gets too warm, then push it down and wait, it will cool down. Am I right? Tell me if I need to.
No, you're right. There might have been a misunderstanding. When Audrey said don't open the door, she didn't mean the doors to the studio. There's a little door on the thermostat.
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry. No, I meant, don't open this and start pushing all these buttons. That would be a bad idea. That's what they did on Saturday, and I get a text from somebody in the class, goes, it's 84 in here, we don't know how to change it. So, I won't say who that was. So, like, if I go like this and I press this, do you want to come over and look, put your glasses on? Is it? Right. We have to keep this.
Kill me, you know.
Come on over here, let's look at the lights. So, where it says don't use, what these do is they put on the fluorescents, right? So a lot of times people will walk back here and they'll think, I want to put some lights on back here, so they just flick the light. It's only here, these are the back lights, right, these two, right? This is, what is this? This is like some light thing. Don't even use this. But this used to be the light thing for outside, I think, but don't even use that. So these are the dimmers. It says left, which means your left, right? So that's this. This is the one. Then the dimmers for the other ones are on the side. See, all of these got put in at different times, and it got kind of cobbled together as they all broke down. So this was kind of what is thing. So this is off, and then these are the dimmers. Do me a favor before you leave. Make sure you not just dim it, but switch it, click it, and these, put them all the way off. Don't just dim them, yeah, so we take the power out, yeah. Does that make sense?
For assisting, it's really nice to have someone come and get the lights up so people can get their
Right,
At
right.
what point do you want those
if,
lights
if
up?
you were calling Shavasana,
Yeah.
then, you know, taking the lights down. But my suggestion is not, so say the lights are like this, right? And now people are going to Shavasana, you don't go boom, right? You just take them down slowly, take each one down. And it's kind of hard because you have to slide them, so slide them down slow. And that's a great thing to do. The 10 o'clock class after the 8:30 class, if you can make tea, that would be great. So you take 3 bags, or sometimes 2, and it just depends on the tea, and you put them right underneath the water spout. Gary has this habit of putting them over here, and then we have a pot of hot water. So make sure you put them underneath the water spout. You get the water and you fill it up to 12. You make the whole pot. You put the thing in here, and you push this button.
You fill it.
Can't tell.
So you can tell. All right, use the filtered water. Good idea. Write a note that I bought something. No, you just put your money in the box. If you're buying a mat, you know, put your money in the box. Write a check. The tax is included, so they don't have to figure out tax. And I just like at the end of the year, I took an inventory. So every 6 months, I inventory and I pay sales tax based on what inventory is missing, right? If people are brand new and they say, you know, I kind of want a little more pad, it's not a bad idea to show them these mats. I never try to sell anybody anything because I figure if they hate it, then I've sold it to them and I don't like that. So, you know, I'll usually, you know, if this is available, give them this mat. You know, and if somebody wants to know the difference, if they say, I'm thinking of buying a mat, please encourage them to try these mats first because we can't take it back.
Yeah.
So that's why we have these as trial mats. I usually tell people if they want to buy one of these, that these need breaking in. And if you sweat a lot, they will be slippery at first.
I like 'em.
So if you're a big sweater, a hand sweater, maybe this is going to be a better option for you. Let's see, if they want to buy a shirt or they're a member and they're getting their shirt, tell them the shirts fit small. So they should try them on. If somebody says, you know, I'd like to get a DVD about yoga, we have a DVD. Let's see, what else?